G'day mates, welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I want to VOD review none other than Mr. Fresh Asian, aka Fresh, and I want to show why he did so well in the Bugha Cup round 1 in OCE, and I want to specifically break down his first 2 games. I want to show you the difference between how he plays his first 2 games for early, mid, and late game. The reason for this being is Fresh is known for being a very aggressive player. He gets quite bored in what he calls sweaty lobbies when it's a placement format like it is for the Bugha Cup, but this time around, he adapted his playstyle as he went through the tournament and he started playing more for placement, and I want to show you the difference in what those 2 games look like. I think it's an awesome video. I haven't done one like this before, so if you enjoy it, please chuck a like on it. Please let me know in the comment section down below if you want me to keep doing more of these. Who do you want me to VOD review? Just any kind of opinions you have on the video, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, and I hope you enjoy the video. Now, looking at these 2 games on face value, I'm not counting Fresh's first game because he just went down early. So he gets a 10 elimination first and he gets a 7 elimination third. The first thing that Fresh does when he starts up his stream, when I was watching this tournament, is he starts to try to figure out what is the format for this tournament. And that's how you have to start every single tournament. The best way to base it is it a placement heavy or an elimination heavy format. The way you do that is just how many eliminations is it for a win? In this format, it is 31 eliminations for a win. Try to think, what is more difficult to do for you in a Fortnite game? Get 31 eliminations or get the win? And I'm talking about in tournaments, not just in pubs. The win is much easier. And especially if you go through the placement format here for the Bugha Cup, you notice that the placement gets very, very heavy towards the end. If you make it in the top 40, you're getting a placement point for every person that goes down. And if you make it into the top 10, you're going to be getting 2. That's really, really important. As much as this format might not come back, when you're playing tournaments, you need to play to the format. And that's exactly what Fresh does today. So he identifies that at the start. But if you're playing in regions, if you don't know, tournaments have what is called skill-based matchmaking. It's probably a word you've heard thrown around a lot, but in tournaments, it means that your first couple of games, you're going to verse the players on lower points, because what happens is when you all start off on 0, everyone's on even playing field. But after that first game, the absolute gods of your region will start to drop 20 and 30 bomb wins, and they get way more points. So they're only queuing against people that are around their points. But when you first start off your games, everyone's level. That means if you're a good player, you need to get big eliminations in your first game or your first 2 games, because that's when you're versing on average worst players. After that, once you have your first big couple of games, you're going to verse better people. So that's what Fresh does. He plays his first game far more aggressive than his second game, and that's what I want to break down. I want to show you what the difference is at each stage of the game in how Fresh plays it based on the skill-based matchmaking and playing to the format. So we're going to kick it off with early game. Game 1, he managed to get 5 eliminations off spawn at Pleasant Park. So what can we learn from this? Fresh always drops Pleasant Park, but how he plays Pleasant Park changes throughout the game. So game 1, he drops Pleasant Park, he drops Doghouse, same as always. He picks up 5 eliminations. He clears out every single person at Pleasant Park or around Pleasant Park. He loots his side, he pushes across, he lands a couple of good snipes, he pretty much gets every elimination off snipes, but the difference being is he's chasing those fights. He's actively engaging and looking for eliminations. That's his game 1. If you look at game 2, he managed to pick up 2 eliminations at Pleasant Park, but then he rotates out. There's other people still in Pleasant Park on the other side of Pleasant Park, on the west side. He drops on the east side, but he doesn't choose to fight them. He identifies the players in this game are going to be better. It's going to be harder to get his eliminations, and he starts rotating out. It's a very big point of how you need to play your tournaments. You can play the exact same, you can go the exact same drop for a tournament, 10 games through, but you can change how you play that tournament. An example might be you drop Misty Meadows. You might take out the 1 or 2 people on your side of Misty Meadows if you drop on, let's say, like the east side. And if it's a stacked game, you might only kill them. But if it's an unstacked game, you might push across and start W King. Your rotations and how you play your early games especially will change based on how hard the tournament is and based on what the format is. You need to keep that in mind. Even Fresh does it, and Fresh hates playing safe. It's something you need to work on for your tournaments. How aggressive can you play, and how many eliminations can you get away with before you start getting to placement points, and you need to not waste it. The other strategy to have is what some people incorporate by having 2 drop spots. You might try and go a POI like Retail Row, Lazy Lake, one of those more aggressive ones at the start. Maybe you drop there for a game or 2, and then you default to a safer drop spot. It's not a bad idea having 2 drop spots in the back pocket, especially because, like I said, as tournaments go on, you might go through your first 2 games games really quickly. You might go down on spawn both times. And then you think, okay, this spawn's not working for me. I'm going to go drop the lighthouse. I'm going to go drop Weeping Woods. Again, I've got a whole video on safe drop spots. Maybe pick one of these 5. Have another drop spot in reserve, but Fresh, being a phenomenal early game fighter, has good mechanics. He knows how to close out fights, so it's okay. He can stick to the same drop spot, but just play it differently. Now, looking at game 1 mid-game, this is where Fresh sets up on more of the edge of the zone. He takes over this bridge that's just to the north of Salty, and he prioritizes getting a big metal hard base on the edge. So, Zone has just shown, in a stacked lobby, I would highly suggest you rotate more towards the center, somewhere over here. I've talked about this a lot in my past videos. The way it usually goes with stacked lobbies is you want to get just inside first zone, just inside second zone, but then you want to go to the center of third zone, and this is third zone. The reason why I say that is because if you get to the center of third, it gives you guaranteed fourth zone. But right now, in an unstacked lobby, it is not such a bad idea to stay on the edge because there's less eyes on you and you can condition this side of zone. And that's what I want to talk about. So Fresh is very good at conditioning a side of zone. There's only 17 people alive. He's looked out here. There's next to no one out here. So if anyone comes over towards Fresh, what he does, he plays aggressive. He knows that he is in his first game, so the lobbies are less stacked, the people aren't as good in them, so what he does, he goes for his easy eliminations, and he tries to make sure that no one's on this edge, so if he doesn't get next zone, he can rotate towards it. So a player comes up and boxes up on his head. He doesn't just take that easily. In a stacked game, like you'll see next, Fresh will normally not try to fight them. He'll play safe. Here, he backs himself. He goes aggressive, pushes forward, just outbox fights the guy. Again, the players in these first games are going to be worse. You can win more fights against them. So don't play safe if it's then going to scuff you later. If he played safe, let that guy live, and then Zone pulls over here somewhere, and he tries to rotate, and that guy to start spraying him, that's going to very negatively impact his game. So he needs to play aggressive now to get the advantage. But you'll also notice when Fresh goes into these fights, he is still aware of the fact that there are third parties up here. So he's not just stupidly pushing fights. I'll show you this next box fight when someone tries to push on top of his head, exactly how he plays it. So this is the same game. It's a little bit later. Zone's about to show. And as you can see, Fresh gets pretty lucky. It comes slightly towards him here. So he's not that far from zone. He starts kind of building his way towards it, starting to get a bit of piece control, make sure he has his tunnel, starting to get towards it, get some of the builds. But a player will push him in a second, and I want to break down exactly what he does in this fight that is so smart that you need to be aware of in unstacked lobbies especially. In stacked lobbies, you're almost always going to have eyes on you almost everywhere you go. That's why you get lobby folks, that's why you get sprayed. But in unstacked lobbies, because there's not as many people running around, if a fight breaks out, it will get a lot more people's attention a lot quicker. So he makes a nice little tunnel to zone. He takes all these walls. He takes all these builds. Again, he's made sure that next to no one's behind him, but someone shows up for the fight. So let's break down exactly what happens. A player shows up. Fresh again. This is his first game. He's playing aggressive. They build up. Fresh is like, you know what? I'm not going to let you sit up there. I don't want you to take the high ground on me. I want to make sure I condition this side of zone. But look where he's positioned himself. He knows that this is the edge of zone. We've talked about this a lot. This is the dead side of zone. You're probably sick of hearing me say that word, but no one is out here. He has made sure no one's out here. All the players are out here. So where is the safest place to be if you're going to try and fight someone on high ground? On this side of the builds, making sure that he is where dead side is, where no one can see him. So if these guys over here, this metal base, you saw some people over there, if they start spraying, he has got the other player between him and them. So that third party will actually help Fresh in this situation. The third party doesn't come out. He doesn't need it to, because again, this is the first lobby. Fresh closes out these fights quickly, but that was a very deliberate position that he played himself in these unstacked lobbies. In the stacked games, which I'm about to break down after this, you'll see that Fresh doesn't fight people when they go on top of his head like that, because he knows there's more people around. He wants to play safer for placement. But in the unstacked lobbies, take that fight. Condition your rotate, but do it smart. Don't just set up on high ground and expect for everyone else not to spray you. Now, moving on to Fresh's second game here. Remember, this is the more stacked game. So he's only got 4 eliminations at this point. He got them because a lot of people started pushing him once he left Pleasant, but he had to take those fights. But his rotate already so much safer. He's rotated all the way down here quickly. He's gone through Weeping Woods where he's nice and safe, and he hasn't fought a single person. Now, he sees a whole bunch of builds lying around. I want you to hear the comms from Fresh here.
I'll be yoinking just a better loot. God damn. That guy must be stacked. He's leaving so much behind. I am not versing him. Holy crap.
So, what does he identify there? He has identified as he's come through this build that enemy must be stacked. How does he know that? Because there are spare minis lying around, there's spare big pots lying around, and there's spare ammo. Spare ammo is a massive indicator that you're fighting someone who is incredibly stacked and has taken a lot of fights. Why is that? Because they're already maxed on ammo. If someone has 999 mini bullets, they've fought a few people to get those. So again, he's identifying stronger opponents. He's respecting that he's at higher skill-based matchmaking, so the people he's going up against are going to be better. So he rotates away from them, and look how much further he goes central in this zone. He goes all the way through. He doesn't try to fight anyone. He just wants to get a nice, safe position in the mid game. That's what you need to do as you go through your tournaments. Again, the formula, just inside first, just inside second zone, but then get center of third. And that is unfortunately something that Fresh does wrong here, but I'll break down exactly why that is and how it could have helped him as well. Because again, Fresh doesn't like the sweaty lobbies, okay? I love Fresh. He's a good mate of mine. He admits there's some things he needs to work on, and I still want to point those out to you as well. So the issue with what Fresh does here is he goes to center of second zone, which is not so bad. It gets you a good position. The issue being center of second zone and doing what Fresh does where he boxes up here in wood. I've talked about this in other videos on how to avoid getting W keyed. This identifies you as a weak opponent. Fresh isn't a weak opponent, but Fresh doesn't know how to play stack lobbies as well. So he's building out a soft mats here because the logic being, I'm sure, is that he wanted to be able to refarm these trees to get his mats back. He builds the top layer out of brick, but by this point, it's too late. He's built out of wood, and now someone's going to start keying him. So he had two options to avoid this. Get there earlier and build out of hard mats, or sit inside the bush. I know it sounds lame, but sitting inside the bush means that no one knows you're there. So this player pushes up, assumes that Fresh is a weaker opponent, and starts spraying him. Luckily for Fresh, he's playing smarter now. He sprays back. He starts to kind of put out some pressure after this, and the player stops keying. But if this was a more aggressive player, if this was even maybe a better player, they would not have stopped even if Fresh put out a little bit of pressure. So those are things you need to work on in your mid game. So what Fresh is doing is perfect. He's playing more passive, but he's still got to be smart with how you play passive. If you go straight center early, which is second zone, and you just box up, people are probably going to key you. That guy who you saw who had a whole bunch of eliminations earlier, this is the kind of people he's looking for to eliminate. So just keep that in mind as well. Either box out of hard mats, go to even further dead side. He could have gone all the way down somewhere like here where no one else would be on the minimap, or sit inside a bush so no one knows you're there. Now, I want to talk a little bit about zones here, and don't worry, I'm going to pull out the diagrams. I'm going to break down zones so you're not confused, but Fresh has now gone center of third zone. That's the formula I've taught you guys. That's good. Center of third zone is a good thing. This means he's guaranteed or close to guaranteed to getting the next zone, which is fourth zone. But it's the next zone where Fresh unfortunately makes his mistake. We see that fourth zone shows he's just outside of it. Normally, what a lot of people would do is then go to center of fourth. But you don't want to do that. You want to try and stay on the edge of fourth. Here's a lot of water, unfortunately. So maybe his logic was he wanted to get away from the water. But I would have tried to set up somewhere like here or even here, just somewhere that's close to fourth zone. And I'm going to show you exactly why that is. All right, now, like I said, don't worry. I got a nice graphic made so I can properly illustrate zones for you in videos and not get you confused. So obviously, these aren't the exact zones from Fresh's game, but you get the idea. The biggest one's zone 1 and then zone 2, and as they get smaller, zone 3. So the point is, what I said with the Fresh did so well is he went center of zone 3. The reason why center of zone 3 is so good is because almost no matter where zone 4 goes, which is this yellow one, you're going to get it, because it's going to go somewhere around the existing zone. But once you get zone 3, I would always advise setting up on the edge of zone 4. The reason why you set up on edge of zone 4 is because it manages to give you half potential. Obviously, in this game, you wouldn't have got it, but that's why you want to set up on the edge. So if, say, Fresh went to middle, which is what he does in this game, he goes middle of fourth zone, it pretty much guarantees you're not going to get half. It means you can easily rotate to it, which a lot of people will sometimes say is a good thing. But honestly, in stack lobbies, try to get half, because rotating across the whole zone compared to rotating across half of it often isn't that big of a deal, especially if you're center, because you're going to get a lot of attention from a lot of people very early on. So in your stacked lobbies, the goal being, depending on how good you are, you want to try and get just inside first zone. So let's say if you're on dead side, you'd be up here, just inside first zone, wait for the zone to show, and then you'd move just inside second zone. Again, you're still kind of on dead side. Maybe you'd want to set up over here even if you wanted to as well. And then you go straight center of third zone. So you set up somewhere like here, and then you stay on that edge of fourth zone, which would be somewhere like here. I know it's a bit messy, but you kind of get the idea. Those are things you need to think about when it comes to your rotation in the stacked games. And it's what Fresh does here well, but he could do just a little bit better. So I thought I'd point that out. In unstacked lobbies, Fresh is a little bit more aggressive with how he plays his endgame. He'll try to kind of contest height a little bit. He'll try to get a position where he can get good eliminations before rotating zones start to show here. This player comes up on his head. He tries to push him out. He starts getting sprayed though. And this is where Fresh does what's perfect if you're getting focused in an unstacked lobby. He low pads. He gets to ultra low front side. So what that means is right here on this zone, he is front side. So he's as close to where the next zone goes as possible. And he's ultra low. The reason why this is such a good position to be in is there's only 5 other people in this lobby. So there is a lot of sight lines. High ground is going to be focusing you a lot. Everyone's going to focus you a lot. And the most likely position to be to not get focused is ultra low. And if you're on the front side and you do get focused, you have time to wait. So now Fresh plays a bit more aggressive, but he stays on this low ground quite a lot. So he sits here, he stays low ground, he looks for his eliminations, but he doesn't focus high ground. If you start focusing high ground, they're going to start focusing you. And they're normally the biggest threat in these unstacked lobbies. So Fresh boxes up, he goes to hard mats, which is awesome, goes into some brick, he doesn't go in the wood. Now, zone shows, and again, he prioritizes low ground front side, builds some nice conservative tarps. He could have even dropped down to ultimate low here if he really wanted to save extra mats, but he's got quite a few, and he gets to front side. So people don't start holding him. If you're on the back side, if you're the player that's all the way back here at the end and you start getting focused, you can't get to zone. There's only 2 other people. They're going to keep spraying you. There is a way to play unstacked games. And now we're going to see how Fresh plays his stacked games. Now, before you all start making jokes in the comment, I know it's only 15 first rotating, but in a lot of these open tournaments, especially in your first few games, this is going to be the most stacked they get, and they are still different. This kind of an endgame is still very different to a 6 or 7 man endgame. So what Fresh does is he has 2 launch pads in his back pocket. If you have launch pads, it gives you the ability to spray people on the backside, wait till zone goes past you, and then short launch. So again, I recommend staying on front side at all times if possible, unless you have a launch pad. So Fresh sees the players trying to make their way in here. He goes for a beam, takes down Forbes, absolutely beams him. Now he waits till zone goes past him. He's got the pads, so he can do this. And then he sets up the ultra low front pad. So he does a short pad, gets the cone, edits it, goes to front side, and now he builds up and he chills here. Now, he goes for the same play again. He prioritizes being on front side. He'll box fight a little bit of the players here, but you'll notice he isn't going for anything crazy. Gets a couple shots, hits the player, keeps going for it, but then realizes he has chug splashes. It's not worth it. Again, these are the more stacked lobbies. These are the better players, and he wants to get placement points. Now, he swims to front side again because he sees that he can get there safely, starts to get sprayed. This is where I'd probably suggest switching to hard mats, though. If you start building and you start getting sprayed, even if you're on front side, switch to some hard mats, your brick or your metal, which Fresh does here, which will mean you'll get sprayed less. Now, he gets his own layer here. He starts going forward. This is where Fresh can sit here again now. He can start beaming people, wait until second zone shows, and then he can pad again. So now he's just going to wait till zone goes past him because he can do as much damage as he wants. Try to find these players that are maybe a bit more shambles than him, don't have as much mobility as he does. Just use the extra time that he has effectively. Don't just sit in your box and wait for zone to go past you. Look for some eliminations. Look to put out some pressure. Figure out what's going on around you. So sprays this player next to him because he's on backside now. This player doesn't have the mobility, so he's getting stuck here. Fresh gets the nice elimination, and here it comes. There he goes. He's going to short pad back to front side, and he's going to stay a little bit lower. He doesn't want to contest high ground. High ground normally in these lobbies is going to be the biggest threat. You could win the game from getting high ground, but you could also very easily throw your game. These are the differences of how you have to play your unstacked games versus your stacked games. Obviously, Fresh had quite a few launch pads here. If you didn't have the same mobility as Fresh, I would still suggest staying on front side as much as possible, move into front side, and then hold the other people coming in. Instead of waiting for zone to go past you, get in, and then when other people start coming towards you, then you spray them. So how you get to front side if you don't have the launch pads, obviously try and hold crash pads if you can, try and hold peppers, or just try and move as smart as you can. Keep yourself secure, build up a nice hard mat, so metal or brick base at the front side of zone, and then spray back. All right, guys, that does it for another VOD review. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I've wanted to do one on Fresh for a while because I know a lot of you guys watch Fresh and you watch him play a lot, and I thought this would be a good example of how even someone who gets really bored in stacked lobbies could still play a bit more passive. These endgames weren't insanely stacked. It was still only round 1, but he changed his play style and he did better because of it. He came 8th in the end. I predicted on stream that Fresh would really struggle in this format because I knew how placement heavy it was and I know how much he hates sitting in boxes. So I predicted he wouldn't do well. He changed his play style and he did phenomenal. That's what you guys need to do. And there's a lot you can learn from this. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please chuck a like on it. Let me know in the comment section down below who you want me to VOD review next. Are there any topics you need help with? I read all the comments and that's how I come up with my videos. I give you what you guys want. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It means so much to me. I really appreciate the support right now and I hope you have a good one.